This is everything you need to know about just how good the Lakers might actually be next season after landing Deandre Ayton to complete their starting five. Although day one of free agency did look like a bit of a flop for LA, as they lost Dorian Finney-Smith to the Rockets, didn't get a center, and instead signed a forward, Jake LaRavia, which felt more like a depth move than anything that would actually move the needle. But then, whether it was because of sheer luck or some potential inside knowledge from the front office, Portland decided to buy out Deandre Ayton, and the Lakers quickly pounced, signing him to a 2-year $16.6 million contract. That one deal might have saved them next season, because this was a very big win for 3 clear reasons. First, they actually get themselves a legitimate starting caliber center to pair with Luka Doncic. Ayton is a guy who can provide vertical spacing, finishing ability above the rim, and actually function as a threat in the pick and roll. Second, and maybe even more importantly, if Ayton had not been bought out, the free agent center market was looking real dry. There wasn't many starting quality options left, if any at all, and it was likely that they would have been forced into making a trade to get one, which probably would have cost them draft capital or key rotation pieces. So getting a guy like Ayton outright, no strings attached, on a team-friendly deal was absolutely massive. And third, the contract flexibility, as I just mentioned, is key as well. Just $16.6 million over 2 years. And that gives the Lakers real flexibility. It means they can continue to keep an eye out for other opportunities down the road, and if a better center becomes available, they're not locked in. It's a short-term, low-risk, high-upside kind of move. Now, of course, there are going to be some serious criticisms surrounding Deandre Ayton. People have been saying for years that he can be too nonchalant on the court, that he doesn't play with enough fire, enough edge. That was part of the reason Phoenix traded him away, and it might be part of the reason Portland did as well. But even with those concerns, there's no denying the talent. And sure, in hindsight, he probably should have never been picked ahead of Luka Doncic. But a lot of that disappointment comes from misunderstanding his style. Ayton plays finesse, not brute force. He's got a higher center of gravity, a slender frame, and a naturally lower motor, which makes it harder for him to bang with bodies in the paint and live at the free throw line. That's why he's only averaged 1.5 free throws per game over the last 2 seasons. But that same finesse is also what allows the good parts of his game to really shine through. Sure, he isn't going to bully you under the rim, but he's a solid lob threat, more than capable of catching and finishing passes out of pick and rolls, which is all the Lakers really need from their big on the offensive end. But overall, he checks even more boxes when it comes to fitting in next to someone like Luka. Beyond the lobs, he can also knock down the mid-range at a high level and score out of the post. He isn't your typical floor spacing big, as he's not going to be dragging defenders out past the 3-point line, but he's a really effective catch and shoot option from short mid-range jumpers, where he actually hit 51.3% of his shots within 5 to 9 feet of the basket. And he can even extend his range into the normal mid-range area, as between 10 to 19 feet, he shot 48%. Those are legitimate numbers, especially for someone who's going to be operating as a release valve in a Luka-heavy offensive system. Now yes, his finishing near the rim isn't elite. He only converted 71.7% of his shots from less than 5 feet of the basket, which is lower than you'd like for your starting center. But again, that ties back into his frame, finesse-first approach, and honestly, the fact he was playing with the Blazers last year. It isn't that he's blowing wide open looks, but it's more to the point that he isn't built to muscle through heavy contact down low, and there really wasn't an elite playmaker finding him for these alley-oop looks all that often. Sure, that's a weakness to Ayton's game, no doubt, but it's one the Lakers can certainly live with when you consider everything else he does bring, along with having Luka and LeBron James to get him the ball better. One of these other strengths that Ayton does have comes with his rebounding. Last season, Ayton averaged 10.2 boards a night, which put him in the 97th percentile league-wide. And what's even better about those numbers is how 3.1 of those came off the offensive glass, which is a huge number and something this Lakers team could really use. Defensively, things do get a little bit more complicated. He's a good rebounder on that end as well, but he's not exactly your dream rim protector. He's not a classic shot-blocking center who's going to anchor the paint behind Luka, Reeves, and a soon-to-be 41-year-old LeBron James. But he's not a liability either. He's actually pretty mobile on the perimeter. He can switch a little, hedge, and recover, as he does have some real defensive versatility that will at least keep him on the floor. He certainly raises the team's overall athleticism, which is something they were severely lacking last season as well. But is he a lockdown defender? No. But is he a defensive upgrade over Jackson Hayes? Almost certainly. And he's a far better rebounder as well. So just in terms of raising the floor at the 5 spot, the Lakers are in a better place now than they were a couple days ago. But honestly, the most important thing for the Lakers this offseason has nothing to do with trades or free agency signings. As good as the Ayton deal appears to be, the biggest swing factor heading into next season is simply just getting a better version of Luka Doncic. Because look, even though I'm not saying trading him in any way was the right move for Dallas, there's no denying the version of Luka that did show up in LA last season wasn't close to the MVP caliber player we're used to seeing. He came in out of shape, the jump shot wasn't fully there, he looked slower, didn't have his legs under him properly, and he just wasn't the same guy who pushed Nikola Jokic in the MVP race just a season prior. For the Lakers to really make noise this year, they don't just need Luka to come back, they need that Luka back. And spoiler alert, I think they're going to get him. I mentioned it briefly in my last video about Milwaukee, where I said Giannis might be the best MVP bet next season with more touches. But I've got Luka Doncic in that exact same conversation, because everything we saw from him last season felt like the floor. He was still productive, he still made smart reads, still played within himself, but we know that wasn't anywhere close to the ceiling. When Luka is physically right, when he's in rhythm, he's simply one of the best 5 players on planet Earth. And I think a full off season with LA, his mind cleared, his body reset, and the drama of that sudden Dallas departure in the rearview mirror, we're going to see him come back with something to prove. You've got to remember, that kind of move, being traded from the team you thought you were going to spend your entire career with, messes with you mentally. It certainly rattles you. There was just so much that he had to process beyond the physical side of getting back to game shape. But now, with time, stability, and fingers crossed, no more lingering injuries heading into camp, I genuinely believe we're about to see the MVP level of Luka Doncic make his grand return. If he can get back to that version of himself, the guy who gives you 38 and 8 and 9, it changes absolutely everything for the team. It'll elevate their floor, their ceiling, and completely shifts what this team should expect to accomplish. And that's before we even start to factor in how the Deandre Ayton signing is going to help unlock Luka's game even further. We all know how he operates. Doncic loves to have lob threats, a big man who can roll to the rim and create that vertical pressure against opposing defenses. It's a huge part of what made him so effective with guys like Daniel Gafford and Derek Lively in Dallas. It wasn't just that those bigs were athletic, it's that Luka's timing and vision made them look incredible. And that is where Deandre Ayton comes in perfectly, because as much criticism as he has copped in the past, this is the kind of setup that can really help him flip his narrative. Luka is going to make the game look so easy for Deandre. We've seen it time and time again. If you can catch, jump, and finish, Luka's going to set you up for open dunk after open dunk. Coming off a waiver and still trying to remind the league of his value, this is the exact kind of situation I believe he needs. He doesn't have to be a primary scoring option. He doesn't have to carry the scoring load. He just needs to play within himself, run the floor, and just simply let Luka do the rest. It's a mutually beneficial setup. Ayton gives Doncic that vertical spacing he thrives with, and Luka gives Ayton a chance to restore his reputation as a winning, valuable starting center. And on top of all of that, you've still got LeBron James in the mix as well. Let's not forget that he's also one of the best passers we've ever seen, so Ayton isn't just going to be working with Luka in the pick and roll, but probably with LeBron as well, and that's going to open things up even further. This is a version of the Lakers that can tap into something way closer to the style Luka played with in Dallas, which will likely help Luka to feel a lot more comfortable within the Lakers' offensive system next next season. But just how much is this new look Lakers team actually going to improve overall next season? We've talked about Luka and Ayton and how good that pairing could be, but what's maybe being overlooked is how much this connection is also going to benefit LeBron and Austin Reeves, especially Reeves, because now with a legit pick and roll threat with Ayton operating with Luka, you're going to get a new level of gravity that simply didn't exist in LA's offensive system last year. Defenses are going to be forced to commit an extra defender into that action, and that's going to create so many spoon-fed opportunities for a guy like Reeves to feast. He's going to be getting clean looks all game long, open threes, attacking late closeouts, and even being on the other side of a quick swing. And those types of high quality looks just weren't there consistently last year. The Lakers didn't have that go-to action that demanded the defense to rotate and scramble, which meant a lot of their half-court possessions felt slower and far more stagnant than we expected them to be. But I believe that is all about to change. And then there's LeBron. We saw how the Lakers used a sort of tag team setup last season, staggering Luka and LeBron's minutes, so at least one of them could be on the floor at all times. That's only going to become more effective now. With LeBron on the bench, you can run Luka and Ayton pick and rolls over and over again, keeping the offense flowing with pace and space. And then, when LeBron checks back in, it's back to his version of the offense, where he's able to operate in the middle of the floor, and then use kick-out passes to find shooters like Dalton Connect and Rui Hachimura open for high percentage looks, as you've got a pretty steady offensive unit there as well. And even though the team isn't the deepest in the league, I think that ability to stagger Luka and LeBron's minutes is going to be solid enough. Because really, games are going to be won and lost with the starting five. And offensively, this starting five is going to be a serious problem. You've got four guys, Doncic, Reeves, LeBron, and Hachimura, who can all shoot the three and attack a closeout, which means it almost becomes impossible to send help at that Luka Ayton pick and roll without getting burned. If you bring help, someone's hitting a three, and if you don't, Luka's probably walking into a high efficiency look or hitting Ayton for a dunk. It's that kind of action that creates a ripple effect all across the floor. And again, this isn't just theoretical. It's the kind of stuff we've seen Luka do time and time again in Dallas. The kind of offensive system that nearly helped him to become the MVP. And now he's going to be doing it in the purple and gold. Now, of course, this team is not flawless. There's still a lot of issues on the defensive end. Ayton isn't an elite rim protector, and there'll be nights where he gives up more points than they'd like. But when you're getting everything Deandre Ayton does bring on offense for just over $8 million a season, that's incredible value. He's going to raise the floor for this team significantly, especially considering what they were working with at the center spot before that with Jackson Hayes. And when the offense is humming like I expect it to be, they're going to be really tough to outscore. So even if they're not the most well-rounded defensive team in the league, I still think the Lakers are going to be one of the more stronger regular season teams in the West. They should absolutely be making it out of round one this year. I'd put them right around 50 wins next season, with at least a second round appearance. Anything less would feel like a complete and utter failure. Do I think they have a perfect roster? No, definitely not. They still have some gaps, but this offense is going to be so difficult to guard for a full 48 minutes. When you've got two of the best playmakers in the league with Luka and LeBron, surrounded by shooters, and now a capable rolling big, as the Lakers are going to be in basically any game they play. And it's kind of similar to what's going on in the Eastern Conference with the Bucks. They just made a bold swing this offseason as well, and although it's definitely not perfect, I think they're still going to be a sneaky dangerous team. And if you want to hear that full breakdown and how the Damian Lillard situation is getting out of hand, then you can check out that video right now.